Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people seem to think that nobody matters in the world except for them. Guys, I hope you're ready for another wild ride today, because we're about to dive into some outrageous stories about entitled people, okay? So I hope you enjoy them, and do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So, I'm a high school principal, and for better or worse, that means signing a lot of documents. I mean a lot. Report cards, IEPs, reports, requests, diplomas, the list is endless. Over the years, I've developed a signature that's easy to write, it's distinctive, and it's kinda hard to read. In other words, it's a scrawl. Well, recently, I sent home registration papers to a new parent whose teenager's gonna be entering the school in September. They included a cover letter signed by me. So the next day, there was a message on the school's voicemail from the parent. So for the sake of the story, let's just call her Karen because why not? So Karen leaves a voicemail that says, "Hi, I just received the registration package from the school and I had a question about the letter that came with it. It says it's from the principal, but I can't read his signature. Now I do want to note that under my signature is my name and title printed proudly in 12-point Times New Roman." She then continues on and says, "Can someone get back to me about this?" So my secretary calls her back and the mom demands to speak to me personally. So I pick up the phone and said, "Hi there, OP speaking, how can I help you?" Karen then says, "Okay, so I received your letter with the registration package. I was a little confused because I can't read your signature." Now me, confused, said, "How? It was from me." Karen then says, "I know, but I can't read your signature, so..." At this point, I'm quietly reflecting, and she says, "You know, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but I don't think it's okay to have a signature that people can't read." I tell her, "Ma'am, I'm not sure I understand the concern. The letter's from me on the letterhead with my name and title clearly displayed." Karen interrupts and then says, "But I can't read the signature. I think it needs to be more clear that, people like I can read it." Then she says, "I think you need to change it." I then tell her, "Okay, well, thanks for calling. If you have any difficulty with the registration papers themselves, you can talk to our guidance secretary." At this point, I do try to hang up, and she blurts out, "Are you gonna fix it? I think you need to change it." I tell her thanks. If you need assistance, I'll pass your call to guidance. Bye now. And then I hung up. So a little while later, I received an email from Karen with suggested examples of what she wanted my signature to look like. I thoughtfully deleted it. Guys, what a weird thing to ask someone. I've never ever looked at anyone's signature and thought, I should be able to read this. Maybe I'll confront them about it so they can change it. So a few people in the comments of the post have suggested that maybe she wanted something easier to read so she can potentially forge it. I mean, she did send examples of what his signature should look like, which is really, really weird. Okay, so this story happens around August 2007. I was shopping in the main building center in my town with my miracle daughter, who I posted about here before. We were having a fabulous time when my alarm goes off for her feed. Now, some important information about my daughter. When I was pregnant, there were question marks about whether or not she would survive the birth due to things being detected in the womb. Her most obvious things were her cleft lip and palate, as well as the tube that helps her eat. Well, back to the story. So I found a quiet bench that was out of the way but not hidden. I sit down with my daughter, who was 3 months old at the time. I start to prep things that I need to feed her, like syringes, etc. So while sitting there, this entitled witch, with who I presume is her daughter and her granddaughter, sit down on the other side of the bench. I nod hi and carry on feeding my daughter. Now, while I was feeding her, the young child notices what I'm doing and she asked me questions. She was about the same age as my brother, and being the oldest, I know kids are inquisitive and want to know what's happening. So I explained to her that my daughter was born really poorly and that she eats in a different way. She then talks to her mom and goes, "Is that how you fed me, mommy?" Now the mom says no, but some babies and people need it. And this is when the entitled Grandma Karen stands up. She comes to look at my daughter and goes, "How dare you? This is disgusting. They left a disabled, disfigured thing with a junkie?" Now this scared the little girl, and I did feel sorry for her, but most of all, I felt angry tears prick at my eyes. I said to her, "Excuse me?" Did I just hear you right? Now this absolute waste of oxygen then goes on a rant of how I'm trying to encourage drugs and that I shouldn't have syringes in public and that my daughter should be locked away. I want to note that I am no way in heck a druggie, not even close. She then got so worked up and shouted so much that a cashier, my absolute hero, came out. She looked at me at this point in floods of tears and she called security. The girl and her mom had left because of this, and the grandma Karen holds her ground. She starts screaming and accuses my daughter of scaring them away. She then tries to stomp off, but security heard the last bit and they walk over. Now this absolutely entitled woman tries to say that this whole thing is my fault, that drug addicts should not be allowed out, especially with their disfigured R words. She then says I'm lucky that she's not calling the cops. Now she was screaming that I tried shooting up in front of them and that I should be arrested and that she will not hesitate to throw me in jail. Now I did have 3 syringes, one to draw from the stomach to test it's in the right spot and not gone into her lungs, and 2 with cool boiled water for the flush into the tube. Now the woman carried on so much that security guards banned her from the shopping center and had to call police. While she was going, the cashier came out and sat with me while I broke more. I didn't understand, and I still don't, how people could judge like that. I'm so glad my daughter was too young to understand. What a horrendous thing to have happen to OP. I only wish that right at that moment, a random shoe flies out of nowhere and smacked her in the head for saying all that stuff about OP and her kid. Like, holy crap, some friggin' people, I tell you. So, my boyfriend and I went camping this weekend at a campground, and we met this couple and their son, who's maybe 7 years old. The family were setting up at the plot next to ours. We had some polite small talk, and we mentioned that we bought a tie-dye kit to tie-dye a couple of t-shirts while we were there. Now, it was really just a small cheap tie-dye kit, and we both brought 2 t-shirts to make. The mother immediately gets excited and said that her son would love to tie-dye with us later. Now, we were caught off guard, but I was sure there'd be some extra tie-dye, and I didn't really care that much, so I said sure, I guess he can join us. So a few hours of hiking and fishing go by, and we're ready to go back and settle into our campsite, eat dinner, and start to make the t-shirts. As we head back to our campsite, we see the kid, and he was right at the path, and then he sprints back to his campsite. Once we got closer, his mother stomps over to the trail, and this is how the conversation goes. Karen says, "Where have you guys been? We've waited hours." I told her, we've been hiking, but he can come use it in a little bit once we set it up. Now, I was totally caught off guard and turned off that she even approached me that way, but I blew it off again. Like, did this lady expect me to alter my plans all day to cater to her kid? We get to our campsite and I'm about to start dinner, but this woman and her kid are staring at us. So I decide to get the tie-dye ready so he can bring his stupid t-shirt over and leave us alone so we can eat in peace. So I then bring the tie-dye out and they come over to the table empty-handed. Karen says, "That looks great. My son is a medium." I then look at her and said, "What?" She says, "My son wears a medium-sized shirt. How hard is that to understand?" I told her, "I don't have anything for him to use. I thought you had your own t-shirt and you wanted to dye it." Karen says, "No, you are the ones who brought the tie-dye kit. We waited all day for you to get back, and now you're saying that you don't even have a t-shirt for my kid?" I told her, "I don't know what to tell you. We only have 2 t-shirts to make for ourselves." Karen says, "I can't believe you told my son that he could tie-dye and got his hopes up. He waited for you all day. Just give him one of yours." I told her absolutely not, while laughing. She then says, "It's not funny." At this point, I'm just like, whatever lady, and we keep snickering at her until they storm back to their campsite, where she then starts playing death metal music full blast. It's absolutely hilarious. This chick was insane. She was throwing a full-blown tantrum and glaring at us from afar. So about an hour or so later, the ranger comes over to our tent and says that he got a report that we were drunk and causing trouble for other campers. Now, we were drinking alcohol, but they typically don't care unless we're disturbing other campers, which Karen reported us of doing. We told him that we were just 2 people sitting around and eating dinner quietly. I told him what happened, and he thought it was hilarious, and I jokingly said that I'd like to make a counter report about her music. The guy was like, "Yeah, I'll do that," and then he goes over to her. She throws a fit when he told her to turn that death metal down, and I heard her screaming about how we were partying and drinking, and how she's scared that we're violent drunks, etc, etc. Eventually her husband turned her music off while she was mid-screech, and then sulked into the tent and never came back out. We considered calling her poor husband over for a beer too, but we decided not to poke the bear. My friends, I'll never understand some people's way of thinking. Like, it seems to happen over and over and over again with these stories. People don't get what they want, they throw a tantrum, and then they either call in a false report to the police, or in this case, report OP and her boyfriend to the park ranger, in hopes of getting them in trouble. Also, who the heck randomly carries around a kid's medium shirt when thinking of tie-dyeing shirts for themselves? Like, come on, Karen, think. Think. Okay, so this happened this past weekend, and I'm still shaking my head at this one. So I'm an amateur competitive shooter. I compete in several disciplines, but by far my favorite is cowboy action shooting. It's timed, high speed, and a lot of fun. Everyone dresses up as cowboys, uses period weapons, and you can pick your own cowboy name. That's right, we're definitely nerds with guns. Now, the best part about the community is that almost everybody tries to give back in some way. The way I choose is to dress up and donate my time telling folktales at the local library, minus the firearms, of course. Last week, I get a call from the club president. He tells me that some members would be performing at a festival a couple of counties over from me, and he asked if I'd pitch in and help. I tell him that I'd love to, and ask for the details. He gives me all the information and asks me to do him a favor. He wants me to bring the big gun. Now I laugh and tell him I'd be happy to. The big gun is my all-time favorite firearm. It's an 1874 Sharps Quigley, so named because it was used in the Tom Selleck movie, Quigley Down Under. Now, I won't go into technical specs, but she's a big pig. She's roughly 4 foot long, and weighing somewhere around 13 pounds. She's even made by the same company that made the rifles for the movie. She's too big, she's too heavy, she's too expensive, and I love her. Her name is Cora. If you saw the movie, you'll get it. So I show up on Saturday, drag all my stuff to the booth, and basically stand around looking like a knockoff Tom Selleck. Now, there are a couple of strict precautions taken when we do events like this. There's no live ammunition anywhere on site. All weapons are transported in securely locked, hard-sided cases, and whenever they're removed, they have trigger locks on them. The club members that are performing have blank rounds for fake gunfights, but those are kept in separate locked containers. So while I'm standing around in the booth, I answer questions that people may have. Yes, it's from that movie, yes, it'll shoot that far, and no, I don't think I could do it. So as this is going on, I see a boy maybe 15 or 16 years old studying my rifle pretty intently. I ask him if he has any questions, and he proceeds to rattle off all the specs of the rifle to me. Now I'm pretty impressed and tell him that he really knows his stuff. He tells me that Quigley was his grandfather's favorite movie and that he used to watch it with him before he died. We talk about the movie and how awesome Alan Rickman was before he asked if he can hold my rifle. Now, I tell him that I don't have a problem with it if he gets his parents to come over and give their permission. The kid runs off, and a bit after that, he returns with his father. Now, I knew I was in for a rough time when the first words out of his dad's mouth were, "Why won't you let my son touch your damn gun?" Now, I could tell that this was typical behavior by the way the kid turned bright red and stared at the ground. All the other club members had gone off for performance, so I was alone at the booth with the kid and this idiot. I told the man, "Sir, I have no problem with him touching the rifle. I just want your permission first. He's a minor, and I didn't think it was a good idea to hand a firearm to him without your consent." Now with that, the guy starts to yell at me saying, "I don't see what the big effing deal is. It's not effing loaded." I respond with, "I take it he has permission?" Of course he does. So I tell the boy to go ahead. His face lights up as he lifts up the rifle, grinning from ear to ear. He then asked if he can take a picture, and I agree. I even took my cartridge belt off and let him wear it. It's just dummy rounds, only bullet and casing, no primer or powder. So the kid then thanks me and starts to walk off before his father stops him and says, "Hey, boy, since we're here, do you want to play with any of these other guns?" I inform the father that I don't own these weapons, but he's welcome to wait and ask the people who do. He then starts yelling how he doesn't need permission, how this is a free country, and he can do whatever he wants. He then proceeds to reach out and grab the guns. Now all this yelling gets the attention of the deputies that are patrolling the fairgrounds. A couple of them walk over and tell him that if he doesn't calm down, he'll be asked to leave. He quickly tells his son that they're leaving, but before they walk away, I call out to him and said, "Hey, can he have this?" The dad mumbles something about not caring, so I pull out one of the dummy rounds out of my belt and hand it to his son. I tell the boy what it is and that he can make a keychain or something out of it. I also hand him a club card with my email written on the back. I said, "If you can get permission from another guardian who's willing to bring you out and sign some paperwork, let me know, and you can come shoot a match with us. I'll even bring Cora." I received an email from his mom this morning, and they'll both be joining us for a match in a couple of weeks. Okay, so there's been a huge response on this story, and I want to thank everybody for the kind words and awards. I'll try to give some more detail. So the mother seemed very polite in her email. She was very apologetic for the actions of her ex-husband, and she thanked me for being kind to her son. It turns out that it was her father that the boy used to watch movies with, and her ex is very resentful of anyone in her family. Apparently, she was made to watch it as well by her father when she was younger, so she was aware of the significance. The son was spending time with his father during the summer, and he had begged for him to take him to the festival. He had heard that there were going to be cowboy performances there, and he wanted to see them. It seems that his grandfather had been a fan of all westerns, not just Quigley, and he had shared that love with his grandson. The grandfather passed away last year, and the kid took it hard. And no, I'm not gonna hook up with the mom. What a wholesome story, guys. So at first, I thought it was gonna go completely crazy with the dad stealing the guns or something and getting arrested, but this is so much better. Not all entitled people stories need Karens getting arrested, right? And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and thank you for coming to hang out with myself and Steve-O. If you enjoyed today's stories, do be sure to leave a thumbs up, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, I will link it right here. A senile old manager kidnaps OP to fire him, thinking that he's his employee. It's such a crazy story, guys, so check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. And Steve-O does too. He really does.